Thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it. Making out time to have these discussions with you.
Yeah, welcome. I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what unfolds.
So my name is Zoltan, and I learned about meditation in 2017, and since then, I've been meditating. I've been
Mm,
reading books. I've been exposing myself to a lot of spiritual practices, and it's wonderful. It's not something one has to explain to anybody. You just have to feel it.
hmm Yeah,
You
indeed.
understand? So, and I've seen myself or found myself inviting people for talks, discussions, to help me in my enlightenment and spiritual growth. And it's been wonderful. I've been attracting a lot of wonderful souls, and I'm very grateful and appreciative. And life has really changed for me from the inside out. And I want to say thank you for making out time for this discussion.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, brother. Born in Australia and living overseas for 12 years.
Mm,
And we'll be moving to Europe next year. And I think around the same time that you got into meditation, I ended up moving to a spiritual community for 4 years. So before that, I had done yoga and done some meditation and these things, but not so in depth. And then I moved to a spiritual community or ashram, depending on language that we use, and lived there for 4 years and was kind of expected to stay. I was, yeah, kind of on track to be a teacher in that community, but decided that for me, God is everywhere. God is in the world,
mhm.
and so I wanted to go back into the world and figure my way out here. And that was 5 years ago, and here I am, still getting the hang of it, but it's all enjoyable.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you for that. So, back to the topic of today, how beliefs and habits are formed in the subconscious mind or in the subconscious.
So my perspective on this is very grounded in yogic teaching. So in yoga, a lot of people get very focused on karma and misuse this term. Karma is it's a very complicated topic, but what I think a lot of the time people mean when they're talking about karmas is actually a yogic term called samskara, which
Mm,
is described as a groove. So, like, you know how on a record you have all of these grooves, and the needle goes into the groove and follows that groove and plays the
mm,
song. And in the same way, the yogis described essentially used this term samskara or groove to essentially describe the subconscious patterning that we have, where the uncontrolled attention is like the needle that goes into these different grooves and plays different songs, and we watch ourselves playing out these same reactions or compulsions or behaviors, almost as if it's just playing out. And one of the aims with yoga is to essentially, it depends on the source that you look at. Either reprogram these samskaras,
mm,
so change the grooves, or to get rid of them completely, so that we're instead living life in a way that is constantly awakened and conscious, and we're not needing to fall into any patterns in order to sustain our existence. So this is kind of the foundation of the way that I look at it. So when we look at that, the question is, when we're seeing our behaviors and our habits, are they things that we're consciously choosing, or are they parts of routines that we're unconsciously playing out? And if they're routines that we're unconsciously playing out, this is when knowing the subconscious becomes so valuable and important, because when we know the subconscious, we can either predict or even change the unconscious patterning that we're playing out. We can take the needle and put it into a new groove
mm,
instead of just continuing with the groove that we've played a million times. And this is the reason why groove is such a beautiful and apt terminology for it, is because it gives this indication that every time we follow it, we actually gouge it even deeper. So the yogis talk about thought, word, and action, and actually place thought as higher than words, which are higher than actions. And when they're talking about that, what they're kind of alluding to is the need to not even like follow these patterns with the mind, and definitely from that it will impact the way that we what we say and the way that we act by cutting it in the mind. Make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, but I like the part you talked about thoughts, words, and actions, because it first starts with the mind.
Exactly.
I like the hierarchy. I know that beliefs and habits holds a very significant part in the mind. In these times, I've come to realize that I create my life. I create my experiences. If I was to be told of this earlier, like in the past 10 years, I would never believe this. I would look at it as, what is this guy talking about? What does this mean? But having come to the realization that I am responsible for my life, I am responsible for the habits. I create my life by the things I do, the way I see myself, the belief I have of myself. I see the patterns, and recently I don't question it. I just accept it as it is, because it really doesn't make me a bad person. It really doesn't make me, you understand? Because when you look at it, you start distinguishing between what is good and what is bad, what is wrong and what is right. But all of these experiences are just here to get to understand and get in touch with who I am. I've seen and noticed, even to the slightest of tingling emotions in my body. The tendency to always want to, especially when I want to meditate, when I want to sit down and just be still. And I realize that is the most difficult times. Usually there's this saying that it is very difficult to just sit and do nothing. In that time, you will realize that, man, distractions are really, 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 really something you cannot, or it takes a lot of energy. So beliefs, habits, these are core subconscious behaviors that are embedded in both the mind, the body.
I like what you bring up about this idea of, not judging what you find there. 3 years ago, I started to read Padmasambhava, who is the founder of Tibetan Buddhism. And his approach is very, very similar to Shaivism, except that he speaks in a much more clear language. Shaivism is very coded because it's, one of these very esoteric traditions. And one of the takeaways that I started to notice from exploring both Shaivism, but especially once it was illuminated by Padmasambhava, is that if the aim is to keep the awareness open, to keep the eyes open so that we can watch all of these patterns unfolding and we can know these realms of the subconscious, but also be, completely conscious of what's going on. Judgment is a closing down of that vision. We can't say like, oh, this is bad, and then keep watching it fully. The tendency is that we say, oh, this is bad, I'm going to close my eyes and do it anyway. It doesn't even stop us from doing it. We just don't watch ourselves do it. We do it over here, and and then the next day we open our eyes again. Oh, I feel so bad. What did I do?
True.
But so for me, shifting from this perspective of saying, oh, I should do this, I shouldn't do this, this is good, this is bad, to just uncompromisingly keeping the awareness open, watching whatever it is that I'm doing, not trying to change it, but just watching. And it's worked very, very well, that the awareness itself is refining. There's
Mm.
certain things that I do that they didn't make sense. And
Mm.
if I had have judged it, then I would probably still be doing it because I'd be stuck in this loop of, oh
Loop,
no,
yeah.
I don't want to do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And then I'll resist and resist and resist and then do it anyway.
Do it
But instead,
anyway.
just watching and really seeing like, oh, this is the outcome. This is how I
Uh,
feel when I'm doing this. This is the
mm.
results when I do this. And then I don't feel like doing it anymore,
Yeah.
just without judgment. And yeah, so I really like what you say about this. It sounds like you're on a similar
Yeah,
track.
and that is how we come out of most of the habits.
Yeah, or just accept that. All right, in this lifetime, I like sweets. I
Yeah.
love my sweets. And you know what? I don't notice. Like I know that people say like, "Oh, sugar is," but unless I go really crazy with it, I don't. I
Mm.
think it's not a bad thing for me to eat some sweets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And keeping my awareness rather than
Uh,
trying to
yeah.
fit to some image is
Mm,
much
mm,
healthier for me.
Interesting. This is so interesting. Yeah, it makes sense. We all understand how to navigate these experiences when it crosses our awareness and our attention. Another topic we might just have to touch up on is the signs of spiritual progress or awakening.
Mm,
When I started meditating, I had this expectation that I was going to see results in no time, but it didn't turn out that way. In 2017, I would sit still, I would meditate, I would wake up by 3 a.m., I would wake up by 4 a.m., 2 a.m., I would do deep breathing, deep diaphragmatic breathing, expecting something to just happen overnight, especially manifesting what I wanted, manifesting a bigger part of me, building my confidence, improving on my self-worth, my low self-esteem, working on it. But it didn't just happen. It even happened that it seemed that at some point it heightened, especially that low self. I used to look at myself so little, so meager, so minute. So you understand? And it kept me, where people are gathered, I could actually just be so quiet. When I could actually have the answers to what people need. And for me to express myself, to say it out, to communicate these answers could be very difficult. So I expected these things to just change. By reading books about meditation, I read books by this author, Thich Nhat Hanh. I
hmm
read books from Dr. Joe Dispenza. I read some books from Think and Grow Rich. What's his name again? That's the name of the book. I've
Um,
forgotten the author. I kept exposing myself to books and I kept reading, and it felt like there was going to be magic overnight, but it didn't work out that way. It took a long while. So when I started seeing changes, it was what you're looking for is already here. You already are it. You just need to unfold it.
yeah,
You
exactly.
get. So I started seeing signs. I started speaking up. Felt like something within me was changing. Communication had improved, clarity had improved. The way I saw my environment, the world at large had improved. I was appreciating nature, understanding myself. My relationship with people was top notch. Especially understanding people, especially people around you with their behaviors, moods, and attitudes. Also identifying when I have mood swings and understanding the emotional balances and imbalances within me. So these are the progresses I was observing. I know this topic is very vast and wide. It's not something we can say we have concluded, we have reached to this point and we are it.
Well, yeah, because I think it's also important that we have clarity on what it is that we're aiming for. Because, for example, Thich Nhat Hanh and Dr. Joe Dispenza are going to
Yes.
have very, very even opposite ideas of what spiritual
Uh,
progress looks like. So I guess like that's kind of the first thing to clarify for
mm,
ourselves
mm.
even is what is it that we want out of
Want.
spiritual practice,
Mm,
because the fascinating thing is that the spirit is a powerful tool,
mhm,
and yet from my experience using it as a tool loses the point of what it's really for, which is to transcend the need for tools, to transcend the need to have things be different than they are in reality. And this constant feeling that we have of escapism towards what is. We can try to, even this obsession with changing things, with fixing things, with healing, with manifesting, with I liked what you said, where you said that, what you started to see was that already there, and then it's just a matter of unfolding the truth, the reality, rather than trying to shape reality or like
True.
make things happen the way that we want them to inside of the ego or inside of our small perspective. And that's kind of the thing. Like Dispenser will say that having this good life and manifesting from this place of abundance and all of this. But for me, it's like, okay, but what about, why did God make sadness? Why did God make anger? Why did God make these feelings? Why did God make wanting sometimes of insufficiency? This what our ego calls insufficiency. And it's one thing to use technology to change that, and it's another thing to unfold reality as it is in an attitude of acceptance and love towards what is, and going deeper into that. And I'm not sure, I guess they can coexist to a certain amount, but at the end of the day, we still have to choose which one is our priority. If it's that shaping the world to the way we think it should be, shaping our life to the way that we think it should be, shaping ourselves to the way that we think we should be, or first accepting the world, accepting life, and accepting ourselves.
This meeting discussion was set for 30 minutes, and this is like 25 minutes into the 30 minutes. So let me not take much of your time. What's your technique for meditation? Do you have any particular technique?
I focus on two techniques. I mean, I also do yoga asana and these kinds of things, but that is always changing. I meditate with an initiation, which I received in the ashram, in the spiritual community that I lived for 4 years, and I still utilize that, meditating with Shiva. And then I also practice Uddiyana Bandha, which is breathing modality and focus, and it kind of combines everything. And those have been the two that I have gone deepest with and have practiced almost daily for the last 9 years. And particularly, I mean, both of them, but particularly Uddiyana Bandha is something which is completely, it's still unfolding after 9 years. It's still fascinating every single day that I practice it. And constantly putting a mirror up to my subconscious and my experience in a way that, even meditation is very good for other things, but for creating that like spaciousness, that direct insight into the workings of the subconscious, I find Uddiyana Bandha to be incredibly powerful for that. So those are my two methods.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. I really appreciate this time, the opportunity you have given us. I see lots of your updates and your creation on Instagram, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, I've not come near any of this. It's way, way, way higher. And when you see people who are higher in terms of this spiritual awakening and the processes, I appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you very much. We'll keep following and watching your creation, and bless. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate your time also, and the connection.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
You too.